So in this segment, we're going to be discussing the Tories being called out on a lack of tax cuts. It's going to be a rough week for Laura Trott because she was in two videos where she looked incredibly silly. So we're going to look at this one first, and then there's another one we'll cover at another point where she doesn't understand the Tories' basic manifesto promises of getting debt down as a percentage of GDP over a 5-year period. So anyways, let's have a listen to this.
What I think all of your listeners do know about us is that we want to cut taxes, but we will only do it in a sustainable and responsible way.
This is a government that was the highest tax in 70 years, Laura Trott. So you go a strange way
It's also got very high taxes on lower and middle earners as well.
About it.
No, because we're responsible, Nick. But let me just explain, because, and I think we've had this conversation before. You know, we spent £400 billion during COVID.
And how much of that did you waste? You wasted a ridiculous amount of money. 38 billion on test and trace. You wasted a comical amount.
£100 billion on protecting people's energy prices.
And you could have recouped a decent amount of that money via windfall taxes. You know, doing actual windfall taxes, not ones that had stupid loopholes. So again, this complete fraudulence.
During the energy crisis caused by Putin, right? I think those were the right decisions. We've got to pay that back. And a Conservative government will always be responsible with people's finances. And so we took...
What part of 38 billion on test and trace do you not understand? You gave the money to a jeweller when you had actual manufacturers and suppliers of PPE in this country. You picked some randos off the street. Genuinely, what you know, how Nick Ferrari hasn't pointed this out, it's beyond me.
Some difficult decisions. I'm not trying to step away. I'm not. Yes, but that's a. By the way, I should also point out that is an overall figure. Where we have put those taxes are on people who can bear it the most.
No, you haven't, because under David Cameron, you cut the 50 pence tax rate to 45. And this argument of we put it on the people who can bear it the most is simply not true. They have frozen taxes on lower earners and middle earners. That's what they've done. That's where the tax burden is. So this argument she's using is unreal. Like, people that make like the average amount of money in the UK pay about the same amount of tax, as if they lived in Sweden, for example. You know, I've covered this on the live stream with Bola Hatman, that if you make around I think it's like 36,000 in the UK, you pay around the same tax as you would in a country like Sweden. But in Sweden, you get a much better return for your taxes because they tax other things a lot more aggressively. So this argument she's making is just untrue. Like, the idea that the highest earners are having the higher tax burden is ridiculous.
You know, for people on the lowest incomes, their taxes are going down, but that's, as you know, they've gone down by £1,000 since 2010. But
wow, they've gone down. But you know, are you factoring things like inflation and other factors? No, like that figure's so weird. They're paying £1,000 less in tax. Okay, you know, like, you know, the fact that she's just reading off notes and like she genuinely looks like she doesn't want to be there, and it's very strange.
You know, I'm not stepping away from the fact that we have taken some difficult decisions, but because of those decisions, the economy's turning a corner, which is why we can take these steps.
Are we turning a corner? Like, the economy's barely growing; it's stagnant. Turning a corner where? Into who? Genuinely, like, what is she talking about? We're barely recovering. We've got one of the worst recoveries, I think, out of any G7 member.
To start bringing the tax burden down.
When your senior colleague Sir David Davis tells LBC that the IMF's recommendation that Britain can't afford tax cuts, they should, quotes, get lost, is he right?
I think what the IMF are talking about was the balance of public spending versus tax cuts. And this is a really important debate that we should be having in this country, because, you know, our plans are for public spending to go up by, it's been 3% over this parliament, it'll be 1% beyond that, up to 2028-29. And that will involve public spending going up by 85 billion compared to 2019. Now,
I'm sorry, you're going to increase public spending by 1% in the next parliament? Like, that's nothing. Like, you guys have completely fumbled the NHS. You've broken it. You've broken policing. You've broken the judiciary. Like, I'm sorry, but like, you're going to spend how much to try and fix this stuff? It doesn't make sense. The reason they're going to do a tax cut is just it's red meat to people. That's all it is. It's, yes, I'm paying less in tax now, and it's like you're going to get absolute dross back. It's going to get worse, the service you get in return for your taxes. So again, like, that's why they're trying to do a tax cut, because it's easy to see that in your payslip every week or every month, however you get paid. That's why they want to do it.
Now, we think that is a responsible way to grow public spending, to make sure we're spending on public services, but that we're also able to deliver the tax cuts that we want to.
You've absolutely decimated public services, and you've put a ridiculous amount of tax burden on lower and middle earners. So we're going to skip this one. We're going to cut to another Tory MP having a torrid time.
Are they right? Is now not the time for cutting taxes?
Well,
it's about the IMF saying that.
I don't agree with them, but let me explain why in detail I don't. The first point to make is that it's which taxes you cut and when. We have focused the taxes we've cut, and indeed the beginning, we're in the month where people are seeing...
Well, the tax spend's going up, isn't it? Let's be clear about that as well. You're not a tax-cutting government.
Well, we are, and people are seeing taxes being cut. National insurance, which is going to be worth about £450 to your...
But you're going to be paying more in tax, that's the thing, because the tax thresholds are staying where they are. So yes, you will pay potentially £400 less in national insurance, but because the tax thresholds are staying the same, you're still paying more in tax. You will be paying more in tax.
Someone on the average salary and a couple where both are on average salary, it's about £1,000, right? So this
if
month...
you're making around, I think 32 grand is the UK average, you're going to get £1,000 back, which is good, I guess, but what if you're not on the average? What if you're on less? What are you going to get?
We're starting to bring taxes down, but that tax is on work, right? And we're bringing that tax down. Why does that matter? Because it means that we can get more people into work earning better wages. That really matters. So in terms of why the IMF is wrong, we're focusing our tax cuts on growing the economy and reducing the cost of living for ordinary people.
It's almost like you could superimpose a Labour MP on top of this one and it would sound the same, to be honest. But, their tax cut, they haven't really announced what they're doing in terms of a tax cut, to be fair. They've done a national insurance one, which will help a little bit. But again, it's not going to go that far considering how bad the cost of living crisis is in the country. If you give people more disposable income and they're people who don't have a lot of money, yes, are more likely to spend it, a lot more likely to spend it in the economy, and that will help grow it. But the problem is I don't think it'll be anywhere near enough, and it's not a lot of money they're giving people, honestly. And you got the further problem of funding things like public services as well. That's going to be problematic unless you increase borrowing. Like this covered from from Channel 4, the IMF has made an unusual intervention today, basically warning Chancellor Jeremy Hunt that Britain can't afford tax cuts. They say preserving high-quality public services means the government should be thinking of tax savings, not tax giveaways. The Chancellor has underlined that yet again he believes tax cuts lead to growth. Even the head of the OBR told the House of Lords that the government spending plans were worse than a work of fiction. So the OBR, the IMF are criticising Chancellor Jeremy Hunt's plans to cut taxes because that's all it is. It's red meat to people. That's all it is. This is what the IMF and the OBR are arguing are economics. What Jeremy Hunt is looking for is political wins. That's the difference. And so that's what that's what the issue is here with what he is saying. So I'm not 100% sure on where the IMF, how they came to this conclusion, but they would rather see us investing that money into public services, which again, that will have a return as well. You can get more people back into work and actually just help them improve their basic lives by having them be able to have routine operations and things like that. We're in a country where it takes you 4 years to have your court case heard and things like that. Our public services are completely cooked. So, there are benefits. If you can reduce things like crime, it will help people. But again, this whole thing about, the reason why they've been pushing for tax cuts so much is because it's a clear thing you can say to people, look, you're getting more money on your, in your pay packet each month. And that's a big thing, I think, for voters. But the bigger question will be, how good are the public services? I can't get a doctor's appointment still, things like that. I can't get a dentist. Those are things that are plaguing people a lot more now. And I think that this tax cut won't make a major dent. It won't really help people that much. And, if they do it and the economy continues to kind of be damaged, especially if we go for the Liz Truss doom cycle again, we don't know how these tax cuts are going to be funded. It's going to be quite interesting because if they do it via benefits cuts, I hope the rich public aren't happy with it. That's what I hope for. But anyways, I've rambled on long enough. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.